Hi there, my name is Bethan and my ideal comfort show is watching Lucy Lawless smash the patriarchy again and again. Welcome back to Warrior Princess Playback. This week we're taking a journey through time to the year 1940. It's season 2, episode 10, The Xena Scrolls. This episode reminds me a lot of the 1999 Brendan Fraser movie The Mummy, but actually predates it by a couple of years. You'll probably also clock some heavy influence from the Indiana Jones franchise, right down to basically a gender bent cosplay from Renee O'Connor. Are you ready to dig into this one? That was a top tier pun for you, my friend, because we open on a dig site in Macedonia, where this lady makes her way into a tent and immediately gets mugged.
Now that's no way to treat a lady.
Luckily, Dr. Janice Covington is here to save the day. It's also sort of lucky that nobody in this episode is capable of hitting anyone else with a bullet, even when this cartoonish machine gun gets brought into the mix. I'll say this about Renee O'Connor's performance in this episode. Do I find her believable as this character? No. Do I believe that she had a lot of fun playing this character? Yes. And really, doesn't that make it more fun to watch? With the thugs out of the way, a very southern Lucy Lawless introduces herself as Mel Pappas, and Janice points a gun at her.
Nice try. Professor Pappas died a year ago.
Well, I know that. I'm his daughter.
Mel explains that she found a telegram from Janice in her late father's records and came out to offer her help. But Janice isn't interested. Mel asks about the people who tried to take her briefcase, and Janice mentions someone called Smythe. Just then, a man stumbles out with a knife in his back, and Janice's team of diggers start shouting about the curse and running away.
What's in that tomb that would drive a man to murder?
The most important archaeological find of the century. The Xena Scrolls.
The scrolls she means are the ones we see Gabrielle writing throughout the run of the show, starting way back in season 1. Cut to Janice reading a fragment of one of these scrolls, and Mel helping her to translate it, and we flash back to Callisto and Xena's first battle. Surprise! It's all an elaborate setup for a classic 90s clip show. Just then, a lieutenant from the Free French Army arrives at the dig site.
I knew you was the whole time. I could have killed you in a blink of an eye.
A what?
Blin! Don't you speak English?
I'm French! Why do you think I have this outrageous accent?
His name is Jacques, and it's his mission to make sure that the Xena Scrolls don't fall into the hands of the Nazis by keeping Janice and Melinda protected. Ted Raimi is a delight this whole episode. I smile literally every moment he's on the screen. Next, Janice's aforementioned rival Smythe arrives holding the tablet that unlocks the tomb they're all trying to get into and offers Janice $100,000 to decipher it for him.
That's a lot of moolah.
They head over to the tomb's entrance and Janice pretends the tablet is a fake, but Mel blurts out that it's not and shows them how to unlock the door. Realizing that Janice was trying to trick him, Smythe takes them all inside at gunpoint. Inside, a wrong step quickly sets off a booby trap that turns the stairs into a slide. When they come to, Smythe and his goons are nowhere to be seen, and Janice, Mel, and Joxa are all trapped inside. Mel quickly makes note of the writing on the wall.
Beware the wrath of the god of war.
I'll admit, this accent is a lot. We flash back to this episode in season 1 when Ares, the god of war, tries to seduce Xena back to the dark side.
Now tell me, are you really having more fun these days?
They progress further into the tomb, and it isn't long before Mel sets off another booby trap. Janice snaps at her and tells her to sit down, and she manages to uncover a secret panel. When the other two keep ignoring her, she picks up a scroll and starts reading, and we flash back to this episode from season 1 where Xena's dead lover Marcus helps her stop a madman from destroying the Elysian Fields. I'm not really sure why they bothered putting this scene here, since we never see the character of Marcus again. Maybe it's to show off the fancy CGI harpy fight that happens. This was pretty impressive graphics for TV in 1996, let me tell you. Back in the 40s, they start collecting the scrolls and notice something familiar stuck in the rocks.
Xena's most powerful weapon.
Janice can't move it, but Mel manages to yank it out. It's only half of the chakram, as it turns out. Now, if we're going to go full nerd on this, Xena's chakram gets an upgrade in season 5, which means it shouldn't look like this in 1940. But hey, this is the same show that wants us to believe that Xena helped David defeat Goliath and was crucified by Julius Caesar. Twice. So, you know. Mel abruptly starts walking away as if the chakram is pulling her somewhere. She moves deeper into the tomb and Smythe steps out holding the other half. He sets his goons on her, but Janice shows up and takes them out with her whip. Janice shoots Smythe's lantern and causes a rock slide that makes them run off in separate directions again, and Janice's group ends up in this creepy room that lights up all by itself. Jacques panics.
There's no oxygen in here. I can't breathe.
Starting to panic and control it.
And and Janice smacks him in the face just as Smythe catches up to them. Once again, the two pieces of the chakram seem to be drawn together, and Mel is dragged forward until the two pieces meet and the force of it knocks her and Smythe off their feet. Uh-oh. Now you've gone and done it.
Would you mind slapping me again? I'm hallucinating.
Smythe orders his goons to shoot the person who just rose from a coffin in a tomb that's been sealed for centuries, and that goes over about as well as you'd expect.
Who are you? The last sight you'll ever see.
I mean, I'm thinking that's our SmackDown of the week. That was pretty brutal. Let's do it. SmackDown of the week! Jaxa bravely steps forward to protect the ladies like he promised.
Oh, please. Does the brush salesman from New Jersey think he can defeat the god of war?
Yep, that's right. This dark, handsome chap is Ares, god of what? Did he just say brush salesman?
I lied. Ow. Ow! Jack Kleinman, Victory Brush Company, Elboken.
So the real story is that Jack tried to enlist to take on the Nazis, but just like Steve Rogers, he was deemed unfit for service. He knew about the Xena scrolls through a family tradition passed down from ancient times and traveled all the way to Macedonia to make sure that they didn't end up in Nazi hands.
You're related to Xena?
No, not Xena.
That's right, Jaxa is actually the descendant of Jaxa. It's kind of weird they used a clip from his brief stint as a useless villain when he's well established by this point as more of an inept sidekick, but they seem to be limited to only using clips from season 1 for this episode, and I'm not sure why. This dagger is hilarious! Ares goes on to explain that only a descendant of Xena can release him from the tomb. Janice immediately assumes he means her.
Oh, you are related to someone in the scrolls, but it's not Xena. Think irritating blonde.
Now Janice thinks he means Callisto, which really makes me giggle. Callisto's been known to burn down villages and murder people on their honeymoon, but sure, irritating seems like the right adjective.
Wrong blonde.
That's right, she's the descendant of Gabrielle, which I guess means Gabrielle has another child at some point who isn't, you know, the spawn of an ancient evil being. So that's nice. Ares starts monologuing just as Xena's soul takes control of Mel.
Think again, Ares.
She makes a couple of helpful rips in her skirt and kicks off her heels to get herself battle ready, then tells the other two to go. Ares tries to turn on the charm.
Just give me what I wanted for centuries.
And Xena responds appropriately. She runs away and catches up to Janice, who is sulking about the fact that she's the descendant of Gabrielle. Xena quite rightly takes issue with that, and we get a series of great Xena-Gabrielle moments from season 1, including this one from our very first episode of Warrior Princess Playback. Also, this lovely moment from season 1, episode 20, where Xena tells Gabrielle that she's family.
For me, our friendship binds us closer than blood ever could.
Aww. Janice agrees to help Xena make sure that Ares doesn't get out, and they grab Jack, from a nearby coffin for some reason and head back towards Ares. Before they get very far, Ares magics Xena's sidekicks away and places them in an elaborate trap, saying they'll die if she doesn't release him. All he needs her to do is throw her chakram at the big red eye above his coffin.
There's no room in this world for you anymore, Ares.
Oh, you're wrong. And there's a new leader. A lot of potential. His name is Hitler.
Given that we know that Ares' idea of a great warrior and leader is Xena, I can only imagine Hitler would be a crushing disappointment, honestly. Anyway, Ares' trap is getting closer to killing Janice and Jack, so Xena throws her chakram to free them from it. Ares draws his sword to deflect the chakram into the big red eye, and the door to the tomb opens up. Before he can get away, Xena somersaults over him to block his path, and the fight begins. He picks her up by the throat, but Janice helps by whipping his arm and gets dragged into the room as well. Then Xena throws the chakram to make the big spiky ball slam into Ares. The chakram bounces off the big red eye, it breaks in half again, the doors start to close. The ladies dive through just in the nick of time, but Ares doesn't make it. Now, it's pretty common for the places Indiana Jones visits to end up destroyed, and that's also what happens at the end of 1999's The Mummy. This episode goes a little bit left with that idea and has Dr. Janice blow the place up herself. Now the day is saved, so Jack says goodbye and drives off with the scrolls.
Don't say it, baby. You're a swell-looking tomato with a nice set of gams, baby. I gotta go.
Mel and Janice, meanwhile, decide that they're going to work together on Janice's next dig. Cut to 50 years later, and the grandson of Jack is in the office of a Hollywood producer. By the way, that's a poster for The Mummy from 1932 on the wall behind him there. When nothing he's pitching is landing, he whips out the Xena scrolls he found in his grandfather's attic. Suddenly, his meeting turns around. By the way, that's the actual producer of the show and husband of Lucy Lawless, Rob Tappert, there playing himself. And that's exactly how the show got made, and nobody can tell me differently. Just the fact that this is a clip show worth talking about is pretty amazing. If you binge just about any American show from the 90s, even Friends, you'll come across these episodes. They were usually there to pad out the season but keep the budget low, and they're often completely skippable. But this one has such a compelling frame narrative you barely notice it. Something that always fascinates me when I'm putting together these YouTube videos is getting to read about the online Xena fandom during the 90s. I was a preteen and we didn't even have dial-up yet, so it wasn't something I got to experience firsthand. It's quite common knowledge that Xena had a big fanfic world, but I didn't know that this episode led to the creation of Uberfic, a fanfiction genre prominent enough to have its own Wikipedia page. That's a pretty impressive legacy for something that just exists to keep the budget low. I'm gonna go ahead and give this 4 chakrams out of 5. Thanks for watching, folks. Feel free to smash that like button like Xena smashed Ares in the nuts. Let me know if there's an episode you'd love to see me review next, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next video. See you next time!